Good morning, friends. This morning session is dedicated to class 12, lesson 4, the enemy supplementary reader. This is a very interesting portrayal of the conflict between mind and heart. This is a story that is set upon in in a, in the period of the Second World War. There is a gentleman, a Japanese surgeon, Sadao, who is torn between his professional duty and his duty as a patriotic Japanese. His one day he just found an American soldier injured completely with a bullet and bleeding came at the doorstep of his house. Having seen the American soldier badly needed the surgery, he was in a dilemma whether to save him or whether to hand him over to the police, because as a patriot his mind was struggling and asking him to hand over the prisoner to the police, and as a surgeon, as a doctor, his professional duty was asking him to save the life of the American prisoner. So he was in a conflict between the two, but later on it is his wife Hannah who really assisted him, and then eventually the operation was done successfully and the American prisoner was saved. Let us see what happens in the story. This gentleman, Dr. Sadao Hoki, had a brilliant career as a surgeon. He completed his study in America. He was not only a great surgeon, but he was also a scientist. While studying in America, he met Hannah and fell in love with her. But he was not sure to get her married because of his father's values and traditions. He wanted to confirm whether Hannah was a Japanese girl or not. When they came back from America after completing their studies, Hannah told that she was a Japanese girl, and finally, by the permission of their father, Hannah and Dr. Sadao got married. Hannah lived in a house just above the rocks. It was a house built by his father. As a child, Sadao used to climb the trees over the rocks and used to see the view. His father used to ask him to see the future of Japan above these rocks. As a child, he learned many values from his father. His father was very particular about his education, and that is the reason why he was sent to America to complete his further education. When he came back during the Second World War, while he was there in his own country, Japan, he met Hannah, and he had already met Hannah in America, but he wanted to marry her. So Sadao had met Hannah in America, but he had to wait until he was sure that she was a Japanese girl before their marriage. His father would never have approved their marriage had she not been a Japanese girl. So Sadao lived in Professor Hurley's house and had almost not gone to the professor house that night when she met Hannah, a new student. After Sadao and Hannah had finished their studies, they came back to Japan, and then their marriage was solemnized in the traditional Japanese way. After that, one day, Hannah and Sadao were just looking the view of the seaside, standing at their doorway. They saw some black thing coming out of the mist. After some time, they saw an injured American soldier who had, sustained a bullet inside his stomach and was bleeding profusely. Having seen the injured American soldier, they were in dilemma whether to save him or whether to hand over him to the police. But they brought him back to their house. They kept him in their father's house, and they didn't tell anything about him, his presence, to the servants. Finally, he was fully, dirty with mud. And, Hannah thought that the servant Yumi will wash him, but she refused to do so. So Hannah herself washed him, and he put him and tied his wounds with a piece of cloth. And finally, she asked Sadao to do the operation. Though hesitatingly, Sadao was not in favor of saving the American, but his heart said that as a doctor he should save the prisoner. So both Hannah and Sadao together assisted him. The operation was done. It was successful, and his bullet was taken out from his body. Finally, he was rescued and he was saved. He lay down in a nice cloth. They fed him with the food, and they took care of. Hannah took care of the prisoner, and he behaved like a friend. Although they were always scared of the general, because they knew that in case the general came to know about this incident, he would be arrested. But despite all the danger, Dr. Sadao Hoki kept on performing his duty and took care of the patient along with his wife Hannah, who really assisted him. And after a week, he was fine and he recovered from the wound. Now, Sadao and his wife were worried about, handing over to police. In the meantime, a messenger came from the general, and along with a soldier. They just informed Sadao that the general wanted him. Sadao went to the general. The general was sick. He asked him to take care of him because he was not feeling well. Sadao told all the story about the American prisoner, how he was rescued and saved by him. The general didn't bother about that. He said that okay, don't bother. After some time, I will send my men. They will kill him and they will, remove his body. But Sadao came back home and he waited for these men of the general. But the general didn't send his men to kill the prisoner. After that, you know, one day when the general was fine, he recovered. He asked Sadao to come and check him. Under the medical inspection, Sadao told that he was waiting for his men to take the prisoner and kill him, but they didn't turn up. So the general said that forget about that. I have forgotten all that as I was not well, and now let us forget this incident. We will not tell it to anybody, it will be a secret. Meanwhile, when Sadao came back, Hannah was quite worried because no servant had turned up in fear. So they finally decided to help the prisoner escape. So they gave him food and clothes and a light that could help him escape, and gave him the boat. And finally, the American prisoner escaped safely under the instruction. Sadao always regretted that he should have killed the American soldier, but his heart was always happy that he had saved a patient under his care and saved the life. So this is how the conflict between heart and head went on, and finally the heart was the winner, because it was his heart that really allowed him to do the operation and to take out the bullet from his body and save the prisoner. So this is how a person who is duty bound to serve the patient as a doctor and forgets about his patriotic duty, even an enemy is as important as a friend for him, and he doesn't bother about his mind, which always asks him to kill the enemy. But contrary to what his mind says, he always bothers about his heart, and as a loyal doctor, as a professional doctor, he saves the life of his enemy. So this is how this story comes to an end, and it gives us the message that however cruel we can be, however indifferent we can be to our enemies, as a human being, we cannot forget to save the life of a person at the time of need as a professional, because our human values always says that heart must be heard rather than mind, because mind always says something else and the heart always says something different. So this is the story, which is a heart rendering story, which tells us how the doctor's Sadao's struggle and conflict goes on between heart and head, and eventually he succeeds in solemnizing with the voice of his heart and saves the life of the enemy prisoner, and finally helped him escape despite all the risk of being arrested by his own police. Thanks a lot. I'm sure you will remember this story for the exams. Thanks a lot.